So welcome. Can you start by telling me what is your name and your nationality, please?
My name is Benoit de Busche, and my nationality is Belgian.
Yep. So Benoit, what was your country stay as an expat?
I stayed during 6 months in Algeria.
So, and for what company did you work in Algeria?
I worked for Consult, which was a company of the as an MBS company. So it was a subsidiary of an MBS. Yes.
Okay. And what was your job specifically?
My job consisted of two parts. So the first part was to educate the people on the maintenance and also the installation of train detection systems, more specific Excel counters. This was the first part. And the second part was also to follow up the testing and also the installation to see if everything was installed according to the specifications.
So I will start with two questions first about the topic living abroad.
Yes.
So it's mainly about how it's the life over there. So my first question about living in Algeria is religion, is that an important factor to keep in mind over there?
Religion is important because it influences their behavior. I mean that from religion point of view, the behavior during the day and during the night is completely different. I mean, during the day, they are very distant, if I can say like that, in their approach. And they don't drink, of course, alcohol during the day. And the second thing is that they always have a certain culture that they take into account. I mean that from time to time, they also do some rites, if I can say like that, according to their religion. So, for example, at noon they pray, in the morning they pray, in the afternoon. So they have religion. It's quite important, yes.
And is there a difference, like you said, by day and by night? And can you give an example of a difference then?
During the day, the people, they work, but of course they work not at the rhythm that we work here in Europe. That's for sure. The main difference is that during the day they are rather distant, and you cannot have a friendly relationship with them. But in the evening, it's different because their perception of life or their perception of religion is that during the day it's day, so it's the sun, so Allah sees them, if I can say like that, even during work. And the evening, once that it starts to become dark, it's quite a different approach. So they are much more friendly, much more open. You have better social contact with them. That's for sure.
So we can say that religion is a very important factor to keep in mind when you go to Algeria.
That's for sure, yeah.
So a second question then about living abroad is it safe to live there and safe to go out, and are there differences by day and by night as well?
I think that my experience was that in the center of Algiers, it's safe, if I can say like that. But once that you go in the suburbs, then it's not so safe anymore, because there are a lot of people who are living like a sort of slums, and there you have to be careful, of course. Second thing is that if you come from Europe, if I can say like that, if you go in that area, you have to dress yourself as one of them, because otherwise you're a potential victim to be robbed. So it's quite, you have to be careful in some areas. Yes.
And the part where you lived, or when you went to another location for work, were you accompanied by guards? Or?
Yes. If we went to work, we had always two people accompanying us from the military police, if I can say like that. And during the night, not, but during the day, yes. Because the thing was that the project was from Algiers towards the desert, it was a railway line. And of course, there were some, let's say, 150, 200 kilometers below of Algiers. There were a lot of extremists also who were still active. So to protect foreigners, in general, it was not only because we did a project there, but in general, they always... you always are accompanied, if I can say like that, by people from military police, yes.
Okay. So then another topic is mainly the working abroad part. So two questions also about this one. The first question is there a big difference in business culture in Algeria compared to our European or Belgian business culture?
There's quite a big difference because there are two aspects that you have to take into account. The first aspect is that the rhythm. I mean, if you organize, if I can say like that, project management, you have to take into account that everything goes much slower than here. This is not only related to cultural differences, but also related to the heat, because during the day you can have temperatures of 35, 40 degrees easily. So during for example, between 12 and 3, they don't work. So you have to take that into account. Second thing is that it's very hierarchical. So this means that they really take into account the director, then you have the sub-director, you have a lot of grades in the Algerian railway system, and you have to take that into account. So there are two things that if you manage a project there, you have to take that into account to achieve certain deadlines, if I can say like that.
Can you give an example of this power distance, like you said, between director and other people? How did you come into contact with it? Or?
But regularly, I think 2 times in a week, we had a meeting also with the director of the operational director of the Algerian Railways, and it was always him who spoke, if I can say. He did the introduction, he managed the meetings, and he asked always to people from, engineers from the Algerian Railways, so they were really addressed to say something. Otherwise, it was he who managed the meeting. So it's something important also to take into account, that you always address the world. If you have a question, you have to address the question to him, and not towards the people directly. Yes.
Okay, interesting. Then a second question about the working part. Is there a specific difference that you remember compared to your home office, or about etiquette or culture as well?
The first thing is that if you start a meeting, or if you start work, it's like, if I can say that, you're also invited to have some tea with them, and you cannot, you have to manage that. I mean, you have to accept that. And second thing is also the greeting. So you have to greet first the director and then all the other grades. So you have really to be aware of the grades of every person. And then, yes, I think if you take that into account, it's a bit similar to the professional work environment like in Japan. It's more or less the same. So you have really to take that into account. And what is also important is that if you can only discuss to change aspects in the project, or to have additional staff, if I can say like that, you can only discuss that with at that moment the director of the operation.
That's the same with the previous question about power distance as well. Then.
Yes, that's for sure. Yeah, you have a very grading. I think you have to take that into account. Yeah.
And then third topic is about the adapting part. So adapting yourself to another culture. So I also have 2 questions about this. First of all, did you have trouble adapting yourself? Was it easy or not easy to adapt yourself?
For me, it was not really a problem. I mean, first of all, there are 2 important parts. If you go to work, especially in Algeria, you have to adapt to local circumstances. So you have to take into account religion. You have also to take into account their way of living, their way of behavior. And I think second thing, in Algeria, due to the fact that it was a French colony, so the language is French, so you should speak the language of the country.
Yeah, of course.
Otherwise, you have communication problems, because the first language is Arabian, which I didn't talk, but in French was not a problem to manage.
Okay. And then the second question, what was for you the most shocking or the most eye-opening experience?
The most shocking experience, if I can say like that, is that there's quite a big difference between the day and the night. I mean, their behavior. That's really, really, really shocking. A second thing is also that in the desert you have like Berbers, and the problem is that there are people which don't have a lot of money, a lot of revenues. And at a certain moment we did some testing on the line with a train driver, and then the train driver, he stopped, and I was asking what is he doing. And the problem was that apparently signals which were placed along the track, they disappeared, and also part of the track. So the thing is that during the night, some people from villages, they go there and they cut, if I can say, the signals, and they take out pieces of the track to sell. So they sell it for iron because they have no revenues otherwise. So this is something which is really strange. And then in a later stage, to protect the railway line, if I can say like that, they put fences along the line. Because,
something that you won't see with us, of course.
Yeah, you don't see it in Europe. So of
people
course.
here won't go in the night.
No,
to
here
the
we have
railway
some
line
problems
and,
with copper cables that they steal from time to time, but that's really happening regularly.
Something strange for us.
It's very strange.
Okay. And then to conclude, one more final question. If you can give one piece of advice for someone who would have the same experience as you did, what would it be?
But I think, first of all, adapt to the cultural circumstances. This means take into account religion. You have to build up like a sort of social contact with the people there. You have to try also to participate at certain activities. I mean, sport activities, if it is walking or going with quads in the desert, whatever. But you have to take that into account, because then you can build up a good social contact, and then it's also it has a positive influence on the work environment. A second thing is, if you go somewhere and you have to learn, if I can say, basic wording of the language there. That's also important, so that you can speak the language of the people. The contact is also completely different. And then also take into account the work rhythm of the people. The rhythm of living, the rhythm of working. I think that's very important, because if you go there as a European and you don't adapt to the system that they have put into place, you will have problems.
Okay.
And then, of course, the project will not go on.
So I think I can conclude that it was a very interesting experience for you.
Very interesting, very interesting.
And the main things that you should keep in mind when you go working abroad as an expat, and more specifically for Algeria, is to keep in mind the importance of religion.
Yes.
As well some differences in business culture, like the hierarchy and the power distance.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So thank you for your time. It was very interesting.
Thank you, Leonard.